Regular session.
Second.
Motion to move back into regular session with Commissioner Cottle, second by Commissioner Terry. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are in
Can I make a
regular
motion to
session.
adjourn?
No, sir, you may not. Item 1 is approval of the minutes of the previous meetings, being February the 22nd. I'm sorry, yeah, February 22nd and February 25th. Chair will entertain a motion for the approval.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, thank you. Any discussion, any amendments, any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The motion will carry. Item 2 is a Boyle County EMS update from Mr. Mike Rogers. Glad to have you here, Mike.
He didn't hesitate, did he?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Excited to get to talk to you today. Thanks for the invitation. Since it's my first time, just give you a little bit, first of all, introduce myself. I see some new faces on the commission. So my name is Mike Rogers. It's my 21st year in EMS. I am the Director of EMS here in Boyle County. I started as an EMT, went to paramedic school through our program in Boyle County, went to EKU, got my degree, and then 20 years later, here I am. So it's a little bit about me, but I'm here to talk about our service, just to give you a little bit, some numbers, let you know what we do, and answer any questions that you guys may have. So last year in the calendar year, we did 5,235 calls for help. So that's it's a little bit down last year because of COVID. In April, we were almost 200 runs down, but for the year, we were down. We normally do, probably 300-400 more than that. Although, those runs that we see were trauma patients, cardiac, stroke, overdose, cardiac arrest. We do a lot of inter-facility transports from Ephraim going to hospitals in Lexington or in Louisville. Hospice patients that may be going from the hospital back home. A few dialysis patients, we don't see a lot of those anymore, but we still serve some of those patients. So that gives you an idea of the kind of the runs that we see, but really our service is, we're just there to meet the needs of the community, whatever it is. Last year was a much different year for us. The response looked a lot different. But we've really tried to build a culture of really just patient-centered care, whatever the patient needs. We look at it like we try to provide good customer service. Now, I know in Boyle County, which is our service area, there's no other ambulance service, but we try to operate that there is, that you could call somebody else. Customer service is really important to us. Being there for that patient, not only physically to treat their physical needs, but emotionally too. Sometimes a lot of our patients, all they need is someone just to care about what's going on with them, whether it's an overdose patient or someone that's home by themselves, and maybe they don't have the help that they need. Getting that resource there for them, that's our job. We see a lot of examples of when we go to someone, how we change. Someone, when they call EMS, it's usually not a good day for that patient or their family. So we try to bring, some calm into that situation and treat the patient emergently and get them to the hospital. I talk a lot about in the community about different things, and one of the things that you'll hear me say is we instead of I. Really, in the service that we do, there is no I. It really is, because we couldn't do the job that we do every day without the help of our community partners, the Danville Fire Department, Danville Police, the Danville Dispatch, Boyle County Fire Department, Emergency Management. If there's the Sheriff's Office, if there's an emergency that we respond to, it don't test Boyle County EMS by themselves. It tests our system. Right, so the emergency responders in Danville County, not just one agency. So, you know, you'll hear me say our system, things like that. So really want to thank all those agencies working with the Danville Police, Danville Fire, our dispatchers. You know, we have a really good, we really have a good working relationship. And I can sit here before you and tell you today that through our efforts, our system, that there's people here that wouldn't be here because of what we do, because of the system that the county and the city has created for our trauma patients or cardiac patients. Working with Ephraim McDowell, you know, a really good community partner that we have. You know, if a patient has chest pain and they're having a heart attack, the goal for that patient is to reperfuse the heart, right? To get that blood flow back flowing to the heart. And years ago when I started, we would have to take those patients to Lexington. So they would go to Ephraim first, be stabilized, and then we take them on to Lexington. Well, now, the way we measure that, we're so good at doing that, we're so good at taking care of that patient subset that within 30 minutes, a lot of times the patient's reperfused. So you can't even drive to Lexington in 30 minutes. So what happens is EMS will get on scene, we'll do a 12 lead, put all the stickers on their heart, we'll send it to the hospital, we'll call ahead, say, hey, we're bringing in a heart attack. We'll go right through the ER, go to the cath lab, where the cardiologist will get that heart reperfused anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And the national average is 90, so it's 90 minutes. So the system that we've built every day saves lives. And I'll come talk to you again because, you know, we still have work to do. But I'll cut myself off because I'll talk all day. I want to respect your time, and I really appreciate the chance to be able to sit down and talk to all of you. So anybody have any questions, I'll be entertained. Any questions?
Questions for Mike?
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm the board chair for the local ASAP group in
Yeah.
Narcan. We've been trying to
Yeah.
get out there. Is there a noticeable difference in lives saved with that? Or at least, I don't know, is it making a difference, I guess is my
Yeah.
question.
Well, you know, it's still a problem, obviously. It's not going to go away anytime soon. The thing that I always think about is, we still have a significant number of overdoses, but now I wonder how many times that we don't get called because they're using the Narcan, which is what it's for.
Right, yeah.
But the reporting for me may be skewed because of that. So, but
Makes sense.
I think for the most part, though, that people still do call 911, and that probably is something that should be, addressed to those patients. Hey, still call 911 to make sure that way, sometimes it can take longer, and when that patient stops breathing, we can obviously, along with the Danville Fire Department, we have the tools that can get them through that rough time. So, and we're looking too with UK Healthcare and ASAP and some of those partners are doing like a rapid response team to further help with those overdose deaths and patients. So along with those, I just want to bring it up is the campaign that you see for the overdose for narcotic use and those types of things is good. But one area that we still struggle with in this county is cardiac arrest. Now remember I talked just a few minutes ago about chest pain. Chest pain and cardiac arrest are two different things. Sometimes people will start having chest pain and go into cardiac arrest, but most of the time, people that are in cardiac arrest, it just happens. And basically their heart just stops, has an arrhythmia, it just goes into a rhythm that's not perfusible for the brain. They pass out. That's a true emergency, cardiac arrest. That's when, we need people to do CPR. One thing that I want to do for the county and the city is really focus on getting that message out, that CPR before EMS gets there will double or triple that patient's chances of survival. Hands-only CPR, you can Google it, and there'll be Will Ferrell and all kinds of celebrities that will show you how to do it. You can learn it in 2 minutes. But it's just so important, and it's what what we see that is lacking in our community, our chain of survival, remember the system that I was talking about, is something that we just need to get better at. You know, our dispatchers will try to get people to do it, but they're, you know, sometimes they're scared too, and you know, so we need to get out there and try to get consistent messaging from the city and the county government, hey, this is important. You know, that way we can, you know, I know we've had 2 saves this year. So there's 2 people that when we got to them had no pulse and was not breathing. And they left the hospital normal. And that's our goal. And that when I started 20 years ago, it never happened. It just never happened. But with partnering with the Danville Fire Department, partnering with the city police department, the sheriff's office, you know, they have AEDs in their cars now. The law enforcement has deployed an AED twice since they've received them. So again, that system's working, but we still have work to do. So that'll be something I'll come back in the future and talk to you about and give you more updates on. So,
Thank you.
any other questions?
I want to thank you. I have used your services many a time with a elderly mom.
Yeah.
It's nice when, I guess the good thing is that you get on a first name basis with the folks. Not exactly what you want to do,
Right.
but if you got to deal with the rescue squad, it's nice to have familiar faces that come in and do what they do. And unsung heroes, thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you all.
Item 3 is a Parks and Recreation Program update. Mr. Evan Teague.
How are y'all doing this evening?
Good, thank you, sir.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Just basically want to give you all the runaround of what's going to be happening out at the park with our upcoming programs to kick off spring. As you can see, we got a little bit of sunshine in the air today, and that's typically when people start itching to get out to the park. So as of right now, we're currently under our baseball, softball, and t-ball registration signups. Those are being held throughout the month of March. We will look to play those games in the months of May and June. Try to get them out there practicing through the months of April. We're also we will begin to take summer day camp signups, and that will begin May 1st. That's typically going to run through June and July. We will have the swim team. Those startups will start May 1st. We will also have a tennis camp that will begin. We currently do not have signups set up for that, but that will be later on, early on in the summer. Soccer is beginning to take place. They actually will have games starting at the end of the month. They're a little bit earlier than our other sports. Those will begin. They will begin at the end of this month and run through March, April, and beginning of May. Currently, that's basically all that we have program-wise that are going to be taking place out at the park to kick off our spring sports. And we're excited to get out there as to I think everyone else is too. You know, with the circumstances we had last year and the unfortunate winter where we were unable to have programs this winter. So we're excited to get the ball rolling, and hopefully everyone else is as well.
Any questions for Mr. Teague?
Are those dates on your website if people wanted to look up the deadline for signups and that's set?
I think we may have them posted. We're currently undergoing a new transition of a website that will hopefully be launched within the next month or so. We were kind of hoping that we were able to get that going before these signups, but that's somewhat of a lengthy process. I think last time Amber and myself spoke to you all, we were informing you of our civic rec program that we were going through the training and stuff. So hopefully within the next month, that system's going to be very beneficial to Parks and Rec, and not only us, the community as well. It pretty much lays everything out on the table and gives people a better understanding what Parks and Recreation is.
Did I see where signups are in person right now? And
They
is
are in
is that why
Yes.
the website's not ready yet?
Yes.
Okay. So right now it's in person, but in the future we will have online signups?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
And I guess you'll utilize the city app, like we can go to the city app and hit Parks and Rec. and-
Most definitely, we will be able
Sign
to
up.
link those two pages together.
That'd be great.
Yes,
Yeah.
it will. I think that's what everyone's rooting for, you know, it's hard to get people to come in and do that in-person sign up, especially when circumstances are tough.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you all for having me, appreciate it.
Item 4 is the report from Codes Enforcement, Ms. Lester.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have two reports for you, one for the month of February and the annual report for 2020. In February, we issued 48 notice of violations and 16 business licenses. And also, we found today we had left off 312 South Alta Avenue, should be added to your condemned properties list. It's been condemned since July of 2019. We just caught that it was not on the list. For the month, for the 2020 calendar year, we issued 1,254 notice of violations and 57 citations. And I'll entertain any questions you might have, and I'll let Joni address February's Architectural Heritage Board report.
Nice recovery on the liens.
Yes, we got a $7,366.90 for 350 North Fifth Street.
So at one point, we were not enforcing parking. We obviously have gone back to that.
We enforce everything but the 2-hour parking. We still can't enforce the 2-hour time limit, but we enforce everything else.
I still see that as not a good use of time or city money. There's no parking problem anymore downtown. You know, our own 3rd Street lot is you say it's leased out, and I get it, but there's hardly anybody in that lot. Same way across the street from there, and most any given time of the day, there's plenty of parking on Main Street.
That's the decision of the city commission.
Well, it's nothing we need to address today, but Earl, I'd ask you to kind of look into it, because
Okay,
anything else?
I'll turn it over to Ms. Joni.
Item 5 is Ms. House with the Certified Local Government Annual Report.
Mayor, Commissioners, how are you all this evening?
We're good, thank you.
Fantastic. Bridget asked me to go over the Architectural Heritage Board's monthly report. I wanted to report that we have just about completed 84 surveys between Main Street and Broadway in preparation for the conclusion of the Certified Local Government Grant from last year. Those have been very interesting to survey. They're mostly residential, but we're working on it. Along with those, we have resurveyed several of the structures on West Main, from the 200 to about the 400 block. I have got a set of recommendations for the City Commission's purview for the public art design guidelines. At some point in the very near future, I'm assuming we'll be discussing those. I've gotten and prepared and will present to you guys tonight the 2021 Certified Local Government Grant application. I did a site visit with you, Mayor, to the William Crowe House. I attended the Heart of Danville Design Committee, and we're working on trying to work out something for Preservation Month in May so that we can kind of partner with them. A lot of that's going to be virtual again because of course, COVID. The certificates of appropriateness that were issued were 115 North 3rd Street, 475 West Main Street, and I went down and talked with the owner on 115 North 3rd. And that's pretty much what we did in February. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions? Let me ask you, are you through with your report?
Well, for the month of February, yes.
Okay. Well, finish up, then I'll go back.
Okay, well, I'm done with the month of February, but now I will get into the annual report for the Certified Local Government, but if you have anything to address for February? Okay, fantastic. For the Certified Local Government report, which is required by the Kentucky Heritage Council, I turned that into them in January. Last year with COVID, we only really had about 9 certificate of appropriateness applications. Of course, business and downtown suffered from the COVID. One of those was denied, which was one of the public art murals that we're going to be working on. 2 required no action. We did complete a large survey of the several of the neighborhoods here to help with the Danville Historic Overlay. We did 36 of those between Main and Broadway. The 84 that we will be doing soon will help conclude that. And then what I'm going to speak with you all about tonight, the other 36. I think probably the biggest win for us this year with the Architectural Heritage Board was the Hub building. That is our big win. We were able to work with the owners of that building to provide the appropriate type of windows for that restoration. That is one of the most intact buildings in Danville. It's certainly one of those that has a very prominent place in our downtown, and we really did not want to see that particular building have 3 different sets of windows in it. So we were able to work with the owner and came up with a way to, with Kentucky Heritage Council, to get those windows restored as opposed to replaced. So that's, I think, a big win for everybody. I was able to work with those folks to get that done. I feel like we did pretty well with that. We recognized the Historic Preservation Month in May. All of that was virtual. We really highlighted a lot of the buildings. And of course, you guys couldn't really do any kind of proclamation because COVID was raging at that particular time. So we did that. We did get a set of goals adopted. That is, to help provide property and business owners with as much information and assistance as we can. We really try to educate the public. It's been very difficult over the past year. We haven't been able to do a lot of that because you can't have a lot of public meetings. But we are working on moving towards those goals in the upcoming year. And hopefully we will have a much busier year this coming year than we did last year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about that. I'm assuming you all have that report in front of you. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything about the yearly report.
Let me back up a moment.
Okay.
You note here that we've got 2 vacancies, Melody Quinn and also Julie Wagner.
Yes, sir.
Tom Ty, who I believe is chairman of that committee, has stated to me quite clearly that he would love to see Julie Wagner continue to serve as a resource on that committee.
Certainly.
Is there anything from a statutory standpoint of view that says that can't be done?
Not a statutory standpoint, but as an employee of the Boyle Fiscal Court, it would just be a consideration in the appointment of an individual who works for or is employed by another local governmental unit that is not you.
And I can appreciate that. I'm struggling to think how would that ever come in conflict. I mean, ever's a long time, but it's one person on a 5-member board,
7.
7-member board.
Yes,
so
sir.
I can't see her doing that. But even if there was some potential conflict, which I think is far-fetched, I think the value of her resources to that committee are clear to anybody that's ever worked with her.
I don't dispute any of that information. There's just a concept of, while it may not apply exactly in this situation, but there are certain incompatibility of office requirements that the law does contemplate. And it's, for instance, why you can't have a coroner serve in the same capacity as chief of police, or there may not be a huge actual conflict in the exercise of those duties. However, the law says they're incompatible by virtue of being employed for 2 different missions.
So that means anybody that works in that courthouse could not serve in a volunteer capacity.
Mayor, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is the law contemplates incompatibility of certain offices. I'm not advocating that Ms. Wagner holds a quote-unquote office under the law.
All right.
But I'm saying the judge executive, for instance, probably shouldn't serve on any committee such as DAHB of the city. Or vice versa, it's why you wouldn't serve on any county committee.
Yep, I got that, okay.
But ultimately, it's your appointment, so you can make it and the commission can decide.
I appreciate the knowledge that she brings, but there are 3 boards that are different and operate differently from our other committees. We have planning and zoning, we have the AHB, and we have the Board of Adjustments. So those boards can actually take action. And if this were simply a committee that could not take their own action and did not have public hearings, I would be okay with her service, but I just don't feel good about a county employee, especially in the judge executive's office, serving on a board that is autonomous and can take action.
And let me say this too.
And that's nothing against her at all.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't want anyone
I don't think
to
anyone
be-
would dispute the credentials, passion
Right,
for downtown Danville, knowledge that Julie Wagner has.
Right.
So I've always said this, that decisions become difficult when we put people in them. Policy decisions are best made when you remove individuals. So ask yourself the question, just generally, should an employee in the judge executive's office serve in a capacity on an independent board of the city of Danville? I'm not saying I know the answer to that question. I'm posing it to you in that way, because if you say, should Julie Wagner serve on the committee, I think that's an entirely different question, because I think you could say adamantly yes. Venture that no one's more qualified probably to serve than Ms. Wagner.
I liken it to the reason state employees can't run for office and remain employees. That, to me, that's kind of the same conflict.
You're going to the incompatibility of office. It's the same thing why an active school board member can't serve on the city commission of the Danville, or couldn't be on the fiscal court for that matter.
And I do not want to put anyone in a position with potential conflict.
Thank you.
Are we good? Okay.
We're good, onward.
I would say
Ms.
that,
House, I think the commission has spoken. My FYI is I would use her expertise outside being a member of the committee.
certainly Julie's very well qualified and has been a wonderful, contributor to all things in downtown Danville. So I will leave it to your purview, sir, to whomever you see fit to appoint to that positions. So, I will move on now to the new grant, if you guys are ready for that.
Yep.
We have, as you know, in the last couple of years, I've been coming to you, asking you for certified local government grants to complete the Broadway Lexington Avenue surveys. We have completed about 115 of those. There are 38 structures that remain on the 100 and 200 blocks of 2nd and 3rd Street. At this particular time, I would request from you all another certified local government grant. The total of that project would be $3,520. The federal share of that is $2,112, and the matching share is $1,408. It's a 60-40 match. The staff time that I will contribute to that is approximately 51 hours. It's probably going to be a little bit more, but I estimated at 51 hours. So that gives a total of $1,020. So we would end up asking the city for a $388 outlay for the consultant. And so that's what this will cost you, $388.
that's terrible.
So I try to craft these grants, understanding that money's tight. I get that. So I try
Appreciate
to
that.
use my amount of time that I put in on these as the majority of the match. And I will tell you, the last one that we are just completing, I'm going to go way over that match time because it's with COVID, it's been a booger to get done.
Mr.
So
Mayor?
this will pretty much conclude a lot of that survey. And, you know, as we look for the future, there's a great opportunity to expand the National Register districts up into those neighborhoods if the citizenry feels that that's what they would like to do. And of course, that will give them the ability to, especially if you don't own the property and you're renting it for tax credits. And it also will generally, if you get into a National Register district, increase the value of your property 10 to 20%. And some of those are neighborhoods that really could use that boost. They're cool neighborhoods built around the turn of the century, which I kind of like. I don't always see the big grand house as the perfect. I like the smaller, you know, houses that people have been living in. So they are certainly worth exploring as National Register District addition. And I would say that that's probably the way that we'll move if the citizenry would like to do that, and we can start exploring that. But I do have to get them all surveyed first and make the National Park Service agree. So that is what this grant would be for.
Make a motion?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Holland. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
Great
sign.
project. too.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
guys. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to spend you $388. Good evening to all of you.
Item 7 is the Municipal Order 030801-2021. This is the leave policy with respect to COVID-19. Mr. Boyd, good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you, you have a proposal for a COVID-19 leave policy. I know the proposal's got details. In summary, in 2020, the Department of Labor passed the Family First Act, which required employers to provide coronavirus leave to employees on different circumstances, whether it be actual positive test or quarantine due to direct exposure. The Department of Labor has not renewed or extended the leave policy. It expired on December 31st, 2020. There had been a lot of discussions about them extending it, but as of this date, it's still kind of in a standstill. And upon my discussions with the city manager and evaluating the state of our workforce, we felt like that the city needed to take action and establish its own leave policy for the duration of 2021, or until time that the federal government comes out with a revised leave policy that may be mandated on a federal level. And just kind of give an example, and we've seen a really large decline in positive cases, which is a great thing recently. But just in the months of November, December, and the first part of January, city employees, we had over 90 incidents where we had people in quarantine, whether it was through a positive case or direct exposure. As you can imagine, some employees, depending on their situation, that can put a hardship on them at no fault of their own, whether it's through exposure in the workplace or exposure personal time or, like I said, a positive case. So what we're proposing, and this is the establishment of a temporary leave policy to provide emergency paid leave to employees for really 3 different types of scenarios. One is direct exposure, where they have a direct exposure and they have to quarantine for extended period of time, which the city this year took. Even though the CDC said 10 days, we continued to do a 14-day quarantine period just as an additional safety precaution to protect all parties. But it's also not only that, but if someone tests positive, of course, but then also if someone's seeking treatment for COVID, like for example, if someone's out for maybe 3 days, and they feel like they may have COVID and they go get tested, even if those test results come back negative, we feel that emergency pay should apply for those 3-day period, because what we want to avoid is putting undue stress on employees to feel like they have to come to work during that period, and that way they don't expose others in the workplace and protect themselves and their families and so forth. And so in front of you, the proposal is pretty straightforward. Basically what it says is that the city will provide up to 2 weeks for full-time employees. We provide up to 2 weeks of emergency pay per incident for an employee that's for any of those aforementioned criteria. And then for permanent part-time employees, if they are exposed, then they would get an average compensation of what they average over a 2-week period over the prior 12 calendar months. Again, we hope that we don't have to use this. We're all seeing a big decline in the activity, but we also know how quickly these things can change too. And so that is pretty much what the policy says. Now, there are some control mechanisms when it comes to employee criteria to make sure that the policy is not taken advantage of. For example, any employee that, tests positive or seeking treatment has to provide us HR with a copy of their test results, which obviously are secured in their medical file. And then any employee that's asked to quarantine, like through direct exposure, we would require them to provide us a quarantine notice, whether it's through like from their medical provider or through a state or local healthcare agency. And those guidelines pretty well resemble what the Family First Act had put into place. Yeah, we feel like that is a program that is needed to continue for 2021, because right now there's still a lot of unknowns with the virus and the pandemic. And then we also, we don't know what the Department of Labor is going to do if they come out with a new leave policy. Some states on a state level have issued their own state policies, but we feel like this is something that we should take action on now.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
So moved to approve municipal order 030801/2021.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Cottle. Discussion?
I was just had a comment that in addition to being what I think is the right thing to do, it's also probably saves money in the long run to do it this way rather than having sick people come to work and having that
Expose
perpetuate
more
itself
people.
long term.
Yes, sir, it is, Mr. Cottle, because what would happen is if employees feel like they're under undue stress to come to work, like if they don't have any leave time and they feel like they have to be at work and they're pressured to come in, what we would risk, it actually would cost us more money, because then what you would see is possible potential wider spread exposure, which means more overtime and labor costs for us for those employees that would have to pick up the difference. Plus, then you also see a decrease in services to the community, which is, obviously we want to avoid that as well. Okay.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
All right, thank you.
Carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8 is resolution number 2021-03-08-02. This is about something called an open edge agreement. Ms. Rader?
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. This agreement is for the credit card processing vendor that you all approved the Civic Rec program for programming and scheduling and point of sale for Parks and Recreation Department back in September. This is just the agreement for the credit card processing vendor, and we're just asking you that you approve that.
So you vetted them, you're comfortable with them?
Parks and Rec, and I believe IT vetted the Civic Rec, and this is just the vendor that Civic Rec uses.
Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval of resolution 2021-03-08-02.
Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Cottles, or second, Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 9 is resolution number 2021-03-08-03. This is a dissolution of the Pride in the Park account. Continue on, Ms. Rader.
Ma'am, Mayor, I'm going to actually take this one.
Yes, sir.
Pride in the Park was a charitable arm of the original Danville-Bull County Parks and Recreation Department, whereby funds were raised for the development of Millennium Park. Thereafter, it was used to house donations for certain memorials or things of that nature. Since the city's agreement with the county to bring Parks and Recreation in-house as a department of the city, providing those essential services to all of Bull County by joint agreement, and in full integration of staff and financial resources, all accounts have been integrated with this exception of one remaining account, which is this quote-unquote Pride in the Park account, which has an approximate balance of $4,500. And due to the fact that the nature of Parks and Recreation has changed from a standalone agency to now an internal department of the city of Danville, there's no longer a need for a charitable wing. And as Millennium Park has been developed and will be developed in the future through cooperative capital agreements with the county, it is the recommendation that Pride in the Park itself as a formal corporate entity be dissolved, and that the assets remaining in this small account be simply transferred to the city's general ledger under Parks and Recreation for expenditure in Millennium Park.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. We're in discussion.
This still allows the Atkins family to donate money to parks, and it still allows for donations to be earmarked for benches and trees and et cetera.
Certainly, if someone wanted to make a donation to Parks and Recreation, or any place in the city for that matter, that can be achieved through the finance department at City Hall without the need of having a separate corporate structure.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I just want to
Sure.
make sure.
So if someone wanted to make that donation, they could still do so to the city to help that be achieved.
And the second question we're going to get asked is that this $4,500 plus amount of balance will still be earmarked just for those things and just be in the overall account.
Well, it would be used for Millennium Park, but it is we don't have records necessarily to say that this was for X, Y, or Z. So there is a balance in the account that is, I would just say, unaccounted for as far as not having a specific request attached to it. So some people simply gave money, Commissioner,
Sure, that's
and they
right,
didn't
yeah.
say, I'm giving money for an oak tree in Millennium Park to be in memory of A, B, or C. They simply gave money for the development of Millennium Park. So it's our understanding that any gifts that were given for memorials have been fulfilled.
Great, okay. Good.
And this money would not be comprised of any that the city had received for a specific memorial.
It's just going into the general Parks and Rec fund.
Specifically, what we will do is Parks and Recreation had benches that they had intended to order for Millennium Park, and also potentially a couple of trash receptacles. We will spend that money on those items.
That's
And
what I
there,
wanted
it
to
will
hear.
be spent for Millennium Park.
That's what we're looking for.
But to Mr. Dexter's point, it is not, we can't identify the intent of this balance
Yeah, that's okay.
as originally requested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, that's right. Good.
Any further questions or comments?
Oh, that's good.
Seeing none, Chair, call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 10 is the second reading of ordinance number 1960. This is with respect to the zone change on South Danville bypass owned by the Daniel Hester family.
Move for approval of the second reading of ordinance number 1960.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottles. Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Discussion?
I'll read it.
Seeing, you have something?
You gotta read it.
I need to read it.
Go ahead, ma'am.
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1960, an ordinance changing the zone from AG agriculture to HB highway business for approximately 3.260 acres, more or less of real property located at 0 South Danville Bypass in the city of Danville. Commissioner Cottle,
Yes.
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Mayor Paris,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item, I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem Atkins to take this item. Represents the conflict of interest for me as it pertains to my property at 2356 Perryville Road.
So if I refuse to chair it, we won't take action on it, right? Oh, just kidding. This is the second reading of ordinance number 1961. Madam Clerk, you want to read ordinance for us?
This is the second reading of ordinance number 1961, an ordinance changing the zone from AG Agriculture and R1A Single Family Residential to GB General Business for approximately 19.482 acres, more or less, of real property located at 2356 Perryville Road in the city of Danville.
Thank you, ma'am. Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval of the second reading of ordinance number 1961.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, you want to do roll call?
Commissioner Terry,
Yes.
Commissioner Holland,
Yes.
Commissioner Atkins,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Cottle.
Yes, ma'am.
You want me to get him?
Nah, leave him out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. You're welcome to continue on through the rest of the meeting if you wish.
What does it pay?
Twice. No, I won't say that.
Cool.
All right, item 12 is the interlocal agreement discussion with respect to our Economic Development Authority. Mr. Coffey?
Thank you, Mayor Commissioners. We've laid on your desk the draft interlocal cooperation agreement that will be presented to the Bull County Fiscal Court. The draft was completed by Mr. Dexter and handed to us today. We will review it. It's fairly standard and fairly basic, what we would call basic. The goal is, of course, to establish an economic development authority. And the first paragraph on page 2 talks about the purpose, is to acquire and retain and develop land for industrial and commercial purposes, to aid in the development and promotion of industrial sites, parks, subdivisions for accommodating industrial and commercial needs, and to encourage, promote, and stimulate the acquisition, retention, and development of land for industrial and commercial purposes by other local organizations, both public and private, as defined by KRS 154.50-310, pursuant to the other KRS statutes documenting and authorizing the operation. The third paragraph, we would point out on that page, is an item to be determined. We'll talk about this with the county. But in the first paragraph, we talk about that the Danville and Bull County Board of Commissioners and Fiscal Court will agree to finance the authority's operation. And we've left parentheses there, as that is to be determined. We will sit down and talk about how we want to structure that as administrators, and then bring that back to the commissioners, to the board during the budget process here in a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4. Then we'll talk about, of course, it'll have to develop its own annual budget as other joint operations with the city and county does, for example, planning and zoning as an example to point to. The members of the authority, is suggested in paragraph 4, the mayor, the city of Danville, the immediate past mayor of the city of Danville, the Bull County Judge Executive, and the immediate past Judge Executive, as well as a jointly appointed non-governmental individual member to serve as the chair of the authority without compensation. And we'll note that each member shall be a resident of Boyle County. The terms of the members shall be 4 years or commensurate with their elected and appointed positions. And talks about the operation being a quorum, et cetera. So this is the draft we're working with. We have established a table in the back that outlines the structure that you would have as votes, and then how they would interact with staff on the right-hand side. And so at this time, unless we know that you all have not had time to digest it, what staff will do is, again, take this to the county judge, talk about it with him as an administrative agent for the fiscal court, and so that they can present this, if he doesn't have any questions, that we can bring back to you on the 22nd or at a workshop, if we can get that far, a budget workshop, if it's about the funding. We will answer his questions and allow him to take that to the fiscal court at that time. It's pretty basic, and I know that it can be confusing. Certainly, we can not talk about it too much further tonight and talk about it on the 22nd, but we would suggest that we'll go ahead and take that to fiscal court, though, give you a chance to look at it, and then come back.
Let me add one thing here.
Yes, sir.
For the commission's benefit. 100% of the discussion thus far has taken place between this organization and fiscal court. Personally, I have every intention of incorporating in this the city of Perryville and the city of Junction City.
Well, that was my first impression of this chart, is I think the mayor of Perryville and Junction deserve a seat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
But we haven't communicated to them yet.
Correct. There's a couple of issues with that. We've really not talked to them at length about it. You could, through the bylaws of the organizations, you could adopt them as ex officio members very efficiently and invite them to the table. They do have coverage with the fiscal court, so they do have representation through the fiscal court members, but not directly as municipal organizations. We concede that.
Yeah,
And
I
so-
don't like,
so we-
that's not the same.
Yeah, and we would like to talk to them before we write their names into the agreement and contemplate that relationship with.
I
with
see
that.
it as the opposite. I see this as if we include them,
Right.
they're probably more likely to participate. And I don't really like the past mayor and past judge executive either. If we're gonna go that route, I think it should be another, maybe a magistrate or a commissioner. If the past mayor or judge executive want to be ex officio members, then I would be okay with that. But there's several reasons, and we don't have to get into it tonight. But this is just my first blush, is we need to go ahead and include Junction and Perryville to let them know that they are welcome, and then they
Some
can
of the
decide.
problems, yeah, some of the questions there is that could be derived from that. If you immediately include them as voting members, then we need to clarify the funding arrangement and how that is to, so you would then give, though theoretically, the fiscal court and the city right now would be allocating all the money to fund the organization. And so then are you allowing Junction City and Perryville an equal vote to spend that money, or are you offering them as an ex officio member? Theoretically, what are you contemplating there? I mean, have you thought of that? Probably, I don't know yet. So you don't have to answer me now,
Yeah.
but you can think about that for a little bit. And that's why we left the funding section. We felt like that needed to be determined, and allow us an opportunity to talk directly with the county judge on this agreement, and then contemplate that question further. What role does a voter have if they have not put any quote-unquote skin in the game? That's not to say they don't need to weigh in on the decision.
Right, but see, that's the same problem we
Right.
have right now,
Correct.
is they don't participate
Right.
because it is a pay-to-play scenario. And they
Right.
haven't gotten their money's worth.
Right, and we hadn't contemplated necessarily getting, receiving funding from them necessarily either, but we just want to make sure that is thought all the way through, and not, we understand the spirit of what the dialogue you're having. We understand that, respect that, but we want to make sure that the outcome of that is thought all the way through.
But
And this is very different too. This is not a pay for play. This is an interlocal agreement by saying that if you have shared goals and desires, that you commingle funds to achieve a purpose.
Right.
So it'd be presumptive at this point to include an agency that hasn't been in discussions about the formation of an organization to anticipate the receipt of any funds for this. It's not pay to play. It's if you put money into an agreement, you decide how to commingle those funds for an objective. So I don't particularly care for the phrase pay to play, because we're just saying, how do we cooperate and commingle funds for a single purpose? And to me, that's different from a wordsmith point of view. And then you also have another view, if you have unequal insertion of assets, then you have some concern about, are the taxpayers in a certain jurisdiction funding activities outside of their jurisdiction, which quite frankly would be unconstitutional for you to do. You can't subsidize work just like with our utility. The taxpayers of the city of Danville cannot subsidize work in the city of Perryville. The users of the system subsidize the improvements that are made there. The same analogy takes place here. You're seeing, based upon the conversation, why we left it out of this document. Because to go into pro rata financial contribution and then deriving percentages of voting shares seems overly complicated at this point when we're trying to approach a new formation for economic development, so you've espoused, and this is more of a 40,000-foot view.
Right.
What you're describing is much more in the weeds and can be achieved through bylaws if you have ex officio members who aren't going to be contributing financially.
That's
But it
more,
would be
that's a more
inappropriate.
typical relationship with the other governmental agency is in an ex officio role. And I think where they're not contributing, I'd like to repeat that. So it's something that we can look at again over the next couple of weeks, and we can meet with the county. Like I said, we can provide the document to the county judge and continue to have dialogue about that. Come back, it sounds like it should be on the 22nd. Probably again to talk about it, give you a chance to look at it, digest it, and ask questions.
One thing I have trouble with is something that city attorney mentioned. This is a 40,000 feet view. It's not, when I hear interlocal agreement, in my mind, I'm thinking more details, but there's essentially no details about how to run it or what it is. It's just funding.
It's establishing a
Pretty much.
board and providing the setup of the funding. And once you've established your baseline board, then they will adopt bylaws and set some of those policies for themselves. Once they have a chair in place, they'll go through the exercise of doing some of those detail. What you consider the detailed lifting, the heavy lifting, is done by the commission when you authorize them. But the detail lifting will be done by the board once you've established them.
And the bylaws we will propose.
Right.
And quite frankly, we could have had those tonight to you as well. But again, I just want to know, are we looking at the overall, what the car looks like, or are we trying to see what kind of brakes we have on it? Or what the engine looks like? And if you want the whole package, kind of the internal examination, then you can have it. I think at this point, when you're trying to reach consensus on a big idea, it's helpful to move. You're not voting, we're not asking you to vote on anything, but to see if there is agreement on at least what size the car should be and what color it should be is helpful before you start designing the engine.
Can I ask a question? I'll just ask a point of clarification. Top of page 2, number 1, it says we agreed to create the Board County Industrial Development Authority. I had a problem reading through that paragraph. I tried to identify the 3 or 4 purposes, so somebody help read that for me. Top of page 2.
Sure, and I can do it in a nutshell. And again, this is...
I identified 3 things, but it might be more than 3, so help me out.
Sure, and again, this is a regurgitation of the state statute
Sure.
that forms it. So again, this is the state's language in which we just simply mirror.
Yes.
And that is basically, in a nutshell, to acquire land suitable for industrial commercial purposes,
That's 1.
to aid in the development of these industrial or parks or areas, and to stimulate the acquisition or retention and development of land. Those are the big things.
Those
So
are 3.
acquire, develop, retain.
Acquire, develop, and then what was the third one was?
Retain.
Retain. Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
The name, the Danville County Industrial Development Authority, I guess I thought that was going to be an Economic Development Authority, so as not to be confused with someone else with the name industry in the name.
That's a good point, to the extent that we've talked about, we need to be in the commercial development area as well.
that is contemplated. The statute simply calls it that. If you want to interface the word economic there, I have no problem with it. Technically, as far as Frankfurt is concerned, it's an industrial development authority, and that is considered commercial, everything involved under that. But you can semantically change that if you want to. And I believe our conversations did focus around that, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make sure it's all encompassing.
It is, but words matter too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
understand that.
when you glance at the
Yeah.
KRS, it really references in IDA as a strict text. So, I mean, it's easy for us to miss over, and
Sure.
thanks for bringing that back up. Yeah, that is in fact what we had characterized it by title as.
Don't let it happen again.
Yeah, well, you just look at it
Anything else on that?
so much.
Mr. Coffey, you want to give us a report?
We can do it. The few things to talk about. First, we're going to add an office to the basement. We're a little crowded downstairs with IT, and just so you know, as you walk around, if you hear something, we're going to take about 100 square feet out of the storage room at the bottom of the stairs, and we'll add an office that opens up into the hallway. And again, that will be for IT. Wanted to make you aware of that. The cost is minimal. The other thing is we'd like to report that the CARES Act grant program, we have fully expended those. We did have one applicant that was eligible that met the deadline that we did not have funding for. We would be happy to solicit an extra $5,000 from you in our CARES Act contribution that we received that we could dedicate to that. We did not ask Stephen Dexter to provide a resolution, but we would take that if that's the direction you all would like to do, and add $5,000 more to that pot. And
I would move to it to $5,000 because you said they met the deadline.
Yes.
Are you looking for a formal motion?
I would like it on that one. I didn't
Okay.
know I was,
We
but
have
as I read it, that seems to
Second.
make
We have
sense.
a
Yeah.
motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cottle, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Continue on, sir.
Thank you. And that will help. So that means we will have aided 31 businesses to the total of 155,000. And again, that's all the applicants we received.
So we
est-
only missed one?
We only missed one. We estimated
good.
30, and we had a couple that we thought would apply that didn't, and then a couple that we, obviously, 3 that we didn't think would apply. So it worked out good, and I think it was a well-received program, and I appreciate you all adding that to it. The next thing is Jenny Rogers. We have a contract of sale, I think, from the city attorney that he was able to get from the school. Present that under legal. But we would like to point out that once we know a closing schedule, we will start to plan the use of that building. There will be public meetings around that process, but we would like to point out that we're not immediately jumping out trying to pre-program that until we know what that schedule is, because quite frankly, it could take a while. But once we know that, we would like to point out that the property is something that will fulfill many things inside of the Parks and Rec master plan. So what staff will do is take that document and overlay the Jenny Rogers property into it in detail, and try to see uses that can be accommodated with that property, as well as we will then take that property and look at the downtown master plan that Mr. Walters provided, and again, to see identified uses for the property, and then we'll come back in a report style format for you, and then would likely hold some type of public workshop to distribute that information or to communicate what our thoughts are relative to those 2 planning documents that you all have already invested in. One of the things that we could do after that is take and do an initial conceptual plan for both the fairgrounds and that facility, and we would probably ask to fund that in the budget this year, so that in July 1st that those 2 activities can happen. And again, that's taking the Parks and Rec master plan and overlaying that with more of a detailed mindset towards those properties This is the last year that the fair will operate out of the fairgrounds, so it's time to start planning those facilities and then trying to set a course of action on those.
Did the downtown master plan address Jenny Rogers at all?
It did, in terms of trying to identify beneficial reuse for it,
Okay.
with the tenets of the master plan in mind, which is livability and then also residency. So the idea is that any property you have, if you can enhance livability with it, then we should do that, and also try to encourage downtown residents also. So those are your two things really that off the cuff that I can see out of the downtown master plan that apply to that property. But it's going to be more involved with Parks and Recreation, to be honest with you.
Right.
When we look at that master plan, there's lots of opportunities there to accommodate many different age brackets. It does have a functioning kitchen. It can have its own 24-hour access, for example, in ways. And so I think it's a clean slate and one we're excited to get involved in. I think it's a good building. Some of you have had an opportunity to go through it now. But it's a great building, and it's got really strong bones, and it's in good shape. And certainly I think the community will benefit from its reuse.
I was going to mention that, I know it's on down the line, but at some point, I think one of those meetings, the public meetings, should be held at the school if possible. There's lots
Yeah.
of people who hadn't been.
Yeah.
been
Yeah, that's a
there.
great
I didn't
idea.
make it to elementary school, so I don't know what it looks like.
Well, I mean, this winter alone, like Mr. Teague said, we didn't have basketball anything indoors to offer because we couldn't get access to the gym space. And so having that under city control would at least give some options to do some type of activity there year-round.
But I've just had people
Yeah.
say, that they don't know what it looks like to have any ideas of what maybe we could do with it, so might be a good idea.
We can have American Idol watch parties there.
It's a great idea.
Anything else, sir?
Yes, sir. We want to let you know that the zone changes for Shakertown Road and also Lancaster Road. We're going to bring the Lancaster Road as a regular agenda item on the 22nd and for discussion. Staff has provided us some questions that they've identified looking at the record so far, and so we'll be in a good position to have that discussion on the 22nd. On Shakertown Road, we are asking that we schedule a special call meeting at 4 p.m. on the 22nd, which is before that meeting for your initial discussion on that zone change request. So we'll take both both items on the 22nd, one at a special call meeting, and then one on the regular agenda.
At 4 p.m.
4 p.m., yes, sir.
Is there always a hear the public segment or special calls?
Not on the special call and the initial discussion with you. You have some questions to answer. Mr. Dexter could get into that if he would like. I thought about trying to describe that myself, probably be easier from him.
Just a brief summary of what you'll actually be deciding. There's like different stages of the conversation. The initial stage that you have is important that you just have it amongst yourselves, and that is how you are going to handle the issue. And you have several choices. You've been presented a record from the Planning Commission. Based upon that record, you can approve their recommendation and basically adopt everything, or you can deny. And if you deny, you would come up with your own findings of fact based upon the underlying record, or you can have a new hearing and create your own findings. So it's important that you decide without any public input at that stage how you are going to handle the issue. Once you determine how you are going to handle the issue, public comment may be appropriate. It certainly will be if you have a new public hearing. If you do not have a public hearing, but you are going to still review the record and then come up with your own findings, you will not have public input at that position either. The only way you'll have public input is if you say the record is insufficient for us to make final action. So therefore, we're going to have our own hearing. You certainly will, in that case, have public input, just as you did at the underlying hearing, or the Planning Commission did. So you would both hear the applicant or counsel speak for the applicant, and then you would have those in opposition speak as well if you go to have a hearing. However, if you want to simply consider the underlying record and make your decision based on the record as established, then you will not have public input.
Confused too, what we hear is we do not traditionally draft any ordinance of either first reading, of reject, or anything until after you make that initial determination of what you're doing. So some attorneys will say, well, when you have the first reading, then we'll have this. We have never done it that way. We always have the initial discussion and then bring back an ordinance of your all's choosing after that. So we'll have that first discussion at 4 p.m. for Secretary Road, and that evening at the regular meeting for Lancaster Road.
Is there any merit to having ordinance prepared on whether you choose option A or B or C, so that we can collapse that time?
Well, you really, that is legal work that you would pay for in advance, and 2 of those would be rejected. So you can always have a special, if your need is to compress the time, you could always have special call meetings lined up so that you can quickly execute whatever your decision is. But I don't necessarily know that that's 100% necessary to compress the time. It is if you have a meeting schedule conflicted and you're not going to be able to meet perhaps or something, but we have a lot of meetings scheduled during the 90-day window already, so we should be able to accommodate that.
But this commission can decide that?
Yes, sir.
Do we have our special counsel for
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, 4 p.m.
Would you repeat what you said about the Lancaster Road? That's going to be at the regular 5:30 meeting
Yes, sir.
on the 22nd, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Anything else, sir?
Nope, that's it.
All right, we will move right on into hear the public. If there have been any phone-ins from the public on any non-agenda items.
There are no comments.
No comments. All right. All right, excuse me. We'll move right into commissioner comments. Mr. Atkins?
No, I'm just kidding. To the ladies, today is International Women's Day, the 8th of March, 2021, and we celebrate Women's History Month. I was going to say something about the American Idol, but I'm going to let Ms. Terry have that one. But I want to call to our attention about a good dear friend of ours, Vernon Jordan, passed over the weekend. He was he was the National Urban League Executive Secretary from 1971 to 1981. And I call his name to our attention because Whitney Young is a name that we all honor and respect here in Kentucky, and Vernon Jordan and Whitney Young did lots of work for the National Urban League and both became executive directors of the National Urban League. And so my condolences to the Jordan family for the loss of Vernon Jordan. And then I want to give a special shout out to my brother over there, Mr. Cottle, and his family for the passing, the homegoing of their beloved father as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Commissioner Holland?
Yeah, I'll definitely second thoughts and prayers with Commissioner Cottle and his family. And in the last 2 weeks, I guess it's exciting news that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has arrived in Bull
Yes.
County. It's definitely going to double the rate of vaccination and be a game changer. And I already know a lot of residents that have been able to get their 1-dose shot. So there's hope on the horizon.
And I forgot to give a shout out to City Manager, Mr. Earl Coffey. The downtown master plan hit the community and hit the KSD community. And several of us got lots of calls. And I just directed all my calls to the city manager, and Earl handled it very graciously, and commend you for the meeting you had last Friday morning. That sort of calmed the waters if that was possible. So thank you for your time well spent with the KSD community.
Commissioner Terry?
A couple of things. March is Women's History Month, and I appreciate all the women who have gone before me to allow me to do what I do. The Kentucky League of Cities lobbies in Frankfort on behalf of cities, and we are a member of the Kentucky League of Cities, and they got several bills passed on Friday and last week. But they need some help from us and our citizens to help get a couple of bills through that would benefit cities. One is House Bill 267, and this involves constables, and I guess we don't, as a city, I guess we don't deal with that as much, but it would be beneficial for our county to support that bill. The other bill is House Bill 312. It is new language regarding open records requests. And House Bill 561 is proposed to modernize the state's road funding formula to allow cities to have a larger share of that. And cities are asked more so than counties to build new roads and in the name of economic development. So this bill is very important, and it's very important to our city as we move forward to form an economic development authority. So I would ask that my fellow commissioners and citizens to call or email Representative Daniel Elliott and Senator Rick Girdler to support these bills in Frankfort on behalf of our city and county.
Commissioner Cottle?
For me, I do appreciate everybody's reaching out with condolences on the passing of my father. It means a lot to myself and my family. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, go back to Commissioner Terry. I yielded to her, and she just ignored it.
Skipped over American Idol.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Did I cut you off?
No, he was. I was supposed to talk about American Idol. We were actually, it was Josh Morgan's idea to have watch parties of American Idol at Jenny Rogers. But you know, a young lady by the name of Melissa Ray is competing on American Idol, and she said she had 800 people rooting for her, but really she has 30,000 in the whole county, at least.
She's a Danville High School graduate, right?
She's a Boyle County high school graduate, and I've heard her sing the national anthem many, many times.
I have to just direct her, don't I?
It will bring tears to your eyes.
So let me echo Commissioner Terry's comments, particularly as it relates to the gas tax. Just the word tax, I know it gets such a bad rap these days. Let me explain this as easily as I can. So the gas tax formula worked just fine until you had the spike in gas taxes back in 08, 09. And because of the way the formula is created, when the gas tax went up, when it went down, we actually received less funding potential for roads and road construction and repair today than we did 10 years ago. So I understand that nobody likes taxes, but nobody likes potholes either. You can't have it both ways, folks. So I ask you to call our Representative Daniel Elliott and Senator Girdler and ask them to refigure and modernize the gas tax. So at least we can get back to where we were 10 years ago. And then finally, Commissioner Cottle, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the good works and the wonderful disposition of one Bill Cottle,
Sir.
the Cottle family, and I can speak. My relationship with the Cottle family goes back about 45 years, and your mother obviously served her community well in this chamber, and you know, behind every good woman is a good man. So, and Bill Cottle was a fine gentleman.
He was, and then I came along.
No comment.
I thought Greg
Thank you,
got
though.
the
I
credit for
appreciate
that
that,
one.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Well, Nancy Cottle, while I did not have the opportunity to know her personally, she is one of the women that I thank to pave the way. And I know that community service runs in your blood, and they both were good servants.
Appreciate that.
We'll move right on into item 14, payment of the bills. Chair will entertain a motion for the payment of the bills as presented.
I'll move for approval for payment of the bills in the amount of $1,120,674.91.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Terry. Thank you, Commissioner Cottle, for the second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 15 is resolution number 2021-03-08-04. This is work approval for Civic Plus. Statement of work approval. In lieu of Nick Warren tonight is our one and only James Morris.
Hello, good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, the staff is seeking approval for the city to enter into this agreement with Civic Plus. This will be for our city website, the redesign, training, and hosting and implementation of it. It's a non-contractual year-to-year agreement, so we won't have to. However, it does auto-renew every year unless we cancel the agreement. Civic Plus is owned by the same company that Civic Rec, C-Click Fix. So we think it's a good mix that we can bind everything together. And the request is for an $18,000 one-time cost, and that's for design, implementing, and training, and then a recurring $6,499 cost, and that's until cancellation. So there's no contract, but it does auto-renew.
Do I hear a motion for the resolution?
So move, resolution 2021-03-08-04 as presented.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion? So we're going to get a new website that we can all be proud of?
Yes, sir.
And that's
Excellent.
easy to operate?
Yes,
Yes.
it will allow the staff to also contribute individually to where we don't have all the, everything on one person like we do now. We can spread it out, so the staff can contribute from their departments. It'll be much easier.
Okay.
So this is like all city departments?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
this will be for the entire city, the city's
Okay.
website.
And like the water department, would people be able to pay online or pay water bill, like water hookup finally from a distance?
Well, now, I think
Or-
that will get implemented, but that comes from another project we have.
Correct. That's with your financial software that we're working on, the implementation
Okay.
schedule now. We're trying to get geared up by July being mostly done. And so we'll
Great.
try to get a schedule with that as we go forward for you in a
But they
staff
will
report.
sync together, the two.
Oh, yes.
Right.
We've been trying to do that for, I don't know, a while, so,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, with the Civic Rec and then the C-Click Fix, it's one company, so they integrate very well together.
Okay. And once things are eventually implemented, it might even save time and labor eventually?
I think it'll make us be more efficient in how we, our staff can operate and
Excellent.
including the staff to, you know,
That'd be
Contribute.
great. Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Have a good evening. Item 16 is resolution number 2021-03-08-05. This is the approval for the Red Barn Nursery bid. Mr. Morgan?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The city received one bid for their planting material for the year from Red Barn Nursery in the amount of $39,541.75. That includes all flowers for our ground beds and baskets and the basket materials and all of the flowers for the street containers. The Red Barn has been our supplier for many years now, and we recommend acceptance of their bid.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 2021-03-08-05 as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Is a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cardle, thank you. Discussion?
Is that about the same amount we've been paying?
I think it's gone up a little bit. I didn't look back at
But
our
nothing
previous.
huge.
No.
just,
Does this include maintenance, or do we maintain this ourselves?
We maintain them ourselves. This is
Okay.
just the material.
Any further questions?
We don't maintain them ourselves. We maintain them under separate
Yes,
contract.
that was the contract you all approved. I think, last
Beautification
meeting.
contract.
Yeah, beautification contract.
Takes care of them, right. And installs them and then removes them in the fall.
This is material only.
This is material only.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Any-
Are they local? Where are they out
Where's
of?
Red Barn located? They're in Kentucky, I believe. I'm
Yeah, I
not
think
sure
they're
their
in
location.
Nicholasville or Wilmore.
It's
Seems
yeah.
like one of those two from the top of my head. They're the only one that responds to the RFQ in totality. The hanging baskets is a very specific detail that was arrived at with the beautification committee years ago. It's got a special coconut fiber basket in order to promote growth, and so it is a complicated spec, and so it is not necessarily common for a lot of nurseries to be able to comply with the totality of the request.
They're in Nicholasville. I just looked it up real quick.
Okay.
For some reason, I was thinking Wilmore, but it is.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 17 is Resolution 2021-03-08-06. This is the emergency repair of the Swope Drive storm sewer. Continue on, Mr. Morgan.
Real quick background, one of the first things I was told to look at when I started was this storm drain that we had collapse. It's off of High Street between Swope and 6th. We'd actually started working on getting quotes to do the repair work, to get something done, and then we got two quotes the week before the flooding hit, and they were both in the one was 28.5, which is the low one here. I think the second quote was 31,000. And then the flood hit. This is an issue that's progressively getting worse, so we need to repair it quickly. Those quotes being over 20,000 put us over our spending limit for 3 quotes. We would have to bid this out, and that was going to take us another month or two to do. So considering the flooding we had, and it's slowly filling up with debris is the issue we're having now. It's filling up with debris up the hill towards Center College. So we would ask your all's approval to move forward with the $28,500 quote that we received. And they are willing to start. They're going to start Thursday. They were calling in the bud request today to go ahead and get the underground marked, and they will start this work Thursday. So we're asking to go ahead and move forward with that. This exceeds our usual spending limit, but we were considering this an emergency.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-03-08-06 on
Thank-
Swope Drive.
Thank you, Commissioner Holland. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion?
I would like to add that this project notes something that we need to ask you to start to think about. The Kentucky Model Procurement Code, as Josh reminded me when he came on board, the cost of doing the work that we do is very high now. Especially in construction. So the original limits for three quotes and then public bid was, 1,000, 10,000, then it was raised to 5,000 and 20,000. It is very difficult to find anything that we do, especially on the utility side, under $5,000. It's hard to get an electrician to go troubleshoot some of our larger electrical installations for under $5,000. So with the state having amended the Kentucky Model Procurement Code, ours is more restringent or more stringent than that. And so we will eventually ask you, do you want to raise those limits to more closely align with the state? What did you suggest?
Theirs is 20 and 40, 20,000. Anything under 20,000, you can single quote. Anything under 40 would need 3 quotes. And if you got over 40,000, you'd have to go out for bid.
Right. So the range, instead of being 5,000 to 20,000 for 3 quotes, it is 20,000 to 40,000. That's probably a little high for us. And I would suggest at least going to 10,000 and 30,000 at this point and staying a little bit tighter than theirs. But it does cause, especially that $20,000 number now, we're finding that just about any of our small stormwater projects are exceeding that number. And when you have to create specs to bid those out, to advertise that, to get equal bids, it becomes very cumbersome to accomplish.
It creates more delays.
Yes.
I think we'd be in favor of that as soon as you can prepare it.
We'll come back and you can consider the motion. I apologize, but wanted to mention that to you.
Yeah, I think we want to kind of tighten up how we do those quotes, how we get 3 quotes. If we're going to go to the 20 and 40, I think we need to demonstrate that we're meeting all the requirements exactly, that we're responsible with those numbers and can do it correctly. So I think we get to that point, we'll come back to you all and ask for that.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 18, resolution number 2021-03-08-07. This is a zone change for 303 South 2nd Street. Mr. Morgan, continue.
Yes, first thing, that 303 address is incorrect. It's 301. I got that number off what I thought was a reliable source, but it was one place off. So it's 301 South 2nd Street. It's a Walker Hall property is what we're referring to here. And I think the resolution actually doesn't refer to 303, so I think we're okay on the resolution to move forward with it as it is. So we're requesting that property that the city currently owns, and it will be moving forward with surplus soon, is currently zoned RM2, which is residential duplex. We would ask that it get rezoned to, we're asking you all to request that planning and zoning rezone this property to Central Business District to be concurrent with the property adjacent to it and to match up with the downtown master plan intentions.
I
Do we hear a motion?
Approval of resolution 2021-03-0807.
Thank you, Commissioner Cottle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Discussion.
Just for the sake of clarity, you should know that after this resolution is passed, it'll be forwarded to the Planning Commission. You're still required to have a hearing on the matter, and they will have that on their agenda for the meeting later this month. I can't remember the date off the top of my head.
24th?
24th, I think that's correct, yeah. And then they will forward the recommendation to you at that time. Ultimately, it's your ordinance, but the statute says we have to go through that process.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, comments, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 19. Thank you, Josh. Item 19 is the update from the Danville Fire Department. Mr. Simpson, welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Good to see you, Mayor and Commission. I just want to give you an update on what has been going on in the Danville Fire Department the last 2 months, January and February. If you look and see on the graph, we had 465 total runs for January and February. 11 of those incidents were fire incidents. We had one major incident, which was on East Main Street apartment complex. 8 of 16 units were damaged and destroyed for a total of about $250,000 worth of damage. We had overpressure, rupture, and explosion. We had 3 rescue and emergency service, 305 incidents. And to base what Director Rogers was talking about, we're a great community partner with Boyle County EMS. We really appreciate what they do, what they provide, and how we can assist them and help them. Patient care is where it's at, and that's what we want to be, a good community partner and help with patient care. Hazardous condition, we had 22. That could be a gas leak, chemical spill, anything of that nature. Service call, alarm drops, good intent calls, same. Alarm drops, unauthorized burning, false alarm, false calls, 39 for 8% for a total of 465. I just want to take a moment and thank our department for the great job they did during the ice storm. Worked a total of 353 hours of overtime during that time frame. Also, the road crews did a fantastic job as well. Everyone in the city pulled together and did a wonderful job to help our citizens out. Some of our most recent calls here during the flooding incident last week were basements being flooded. We can't pump basements out, but what we can do is provide the service or turn their electrical off, go down there in the basement for them, hit the meters for them, and not make sure that they're losing electricity or getting electrocuted or anything like that. But our staff did a great job. I was actually in Nevada during the ice storm, and I wasn't pulling like a Ted Cruz or anything. It was a planned vacation for months in advance. And I wrote a list down of things to call and check on. And when I called to check on those items, every one of them has already been checked off. They'd already taken care of it. They didn't need me to even call them. So kudos to our battalion chiefs, our lieutenants, our staff members, and also to the city as well. They did a fantastic job. Let me see here. Got some more notes here. Our DFD staff are doing training this week. We had 2 members just complete the Officer 2 course in Greensburg. We have 2 members down there right now for an aerial class. We did CPR training for all the 911 dispatch center in the last week. And we're also opening our public CPR back up at the end of the month. That's going to be the last Friday of each month. So if anyone in the public wants to have a CPR training, we'll do those at Central Fire Station. You can go on the click and sign up for that and be ready to go. We're also opening our car seat installation back up to the public. That's something we did not do during COVID-19. We had the year previous, we had over 135 car seat installations. And this week, since we've opened it back up, we've already had 4 or 5 car seats. That's really a good thing for the public as well. About 80% of all car seats are installed incorrectly. And it takes a 40-hour class for us to go and learn how to be a technician for a car seat installation, which is a pretty tough class. We have 19 total car seat technicians out of our 21 staff members, so that's really impressive. And we're not doing station tours yet. Hopefully, we'll start back with those maybe at the end of April, the 1st of May. And that's tours that we do for the citizens who may have small children or just want to come and learn how the fire department operates, what kind of apparatus we have, what kind of tools do we have, things of that nature, just general. So, and that's our update. Is there any questions I can answer for you?
Any questions?
So you can register online for the CPR class?
Yes, it's under the new app, city app. You can register online.
Okay.
And that's a service that we haven't had before, so that's going to be really nice for citizens. Just get on there and register. We're trying to streamline that, and we're still going to be working on it for a little while. So there may be some slip-ups, but we're trying to get to where we can be automated and not call the fire station. But if you still want to call the fire station, you can. 859-238-1211, and we'll be more than happy to help you get signed up for it any way we possibly can. The more people we can get doing CPR hands only, the better our community is going to be.
Is that the same for the car seat install too? Can you do that through the app? Or?
I'm not sure about doing it through the app, but you can still call.
Just
and we'll,
call. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times our staff members will be training till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And if we can do it after 4 o'clock, it'd probably be best, but we'll do them anytime. Or if somebody just wants to stop in, we can also help them out as well.
Thank you.
That's a great service that I wish we could have done during the COVID pandemic. We just couldn't do that, put our staff members and the public at risk because we're still having some contacts with that. So,
Doug, can I ask you about, a lot of people have some limbs and brush from the ice storm damage. Can you just talk real quickly about if someone were to burn that?
Right now, what we have is an open burn policy just for site-developed brush. If you want to burn like in a fire pit, that is authorized. You can do that. And we don't recommend during the COVID-19 pandemic that everybody be burning a lot of stuff. We prefer that you get rid of it another way. The city is doing an actual drive-by, picking up limbs and debris. I think it's this week.
This week. It's this week on the regular trash day, correct? And is that, so they can just lay the brush on the curb? And you all are making a pass this week? Just put it out there, okay.
So if you have limbs or debris, just place it on your curb site, and the city will swing by and pick it up and dispose of it.
Yeah, no need to trim it, no need to bundle it, just stack it out there, and it'll be picked up.
That's great.
But getting back to our open burn policy, you're allowed to have fire pits in your backyard. The only thing you're not allowed to burn are, of course, plastics and cardboard and things of that nature. Only site-developed brush, which is tree limbs and things of that nature that you
So
cut
if
down.
someone does want to burn something, they need to call the fire
Call
station?
859-238-1211, and we'll give you a burn permit, which is all electronic. There's no cost or anything of that. But, we do recommend not burning a lot. If you have a large amounts, please dispose of it properly if you can, if at all possible, through the city site.
You have a favorite spot in town, don't you?
We have a lot of calls. That's one of our main calls that we get are about people burning in fire pits, burning their fireplaces at night. You'd be surprised at how many calls we get because the smoke will linger. It'll stay low, and they'll see it in the lights, and they'll say, well, there's a structure fire in this area, and we'll go out and canvass the area and find out it was just someone burning a fireplace.
That was a real neat story about the first responder and Dr. Oz using CPR in the airport on
Yes.
some young man.
Yes.
Saved his life. So
Absolutely.
really neat. Yeah.
And give kudos to the Bull County EMS and also to our Danville Fire. We do a really good job with CPR and AED care. That's one of the main things they do. They do a really good job with it. And we've had, just like Director Rogers said, 2 or 3 saves already this year. Also with the Narcan program, we've had some really good saves with it as well. So it's a great program.
When did you say the next public training was?
It's going to be the last Friday of every month.
Okay.
And you can call 859-238-1211 to sign up for it. And the earlier you can call, the better. Don't wait till a couple days before, because we got to order the cards for it.
Right. How much does it cost and how many hours?
It's
does it
normally been the
usually-
cost of the card, which is about $30,
That's very
and which is a lot cheaper than anyone else around.
good. Yeah.
And also the time frame, it depends on what kind you're getting. If you're getting regular CPR, it could be 4 hours. If you're getting healthcare, it's going to be about 8.
Okay.
We do a lot of healthcare providers. We do some nurses and other people like that. So the 911 dispatchers completed all their training last week, so everybody went through it.
Chief, do you need to go?
I trust those our staff members there. They got everything handled. They don't need me there.
Just checking.
Yeah, I'm sure they're doing good.
You got the next item too, didn't you?
Okay.
All right. What else, sir?
All right, if you want to move on to number 20, resolution.
Please.
All right, this is going to be the SAFER grant application. This is an application for the hiring of 3 staff members through the FEMA SAFER grant. And what that is it's a scale version, basically a sliding scale, where we pay a percentage of each year. And the total cost of that for the first year for 3 staff members for the Danville Fire Department out of our 2021 budget is going to be $93,750. Second year will be the same. Third year will be $281,250. Fourth year will be the same, for a total cost savings around $750,000. The actual cost, if we didn't use the SAFER grant, or if we get awarded the SAFER grant, we went ahead and scheduled a little bit higher than we normally do. So we looked at about $125,000 per person. That includes retirement, insurance, gear, everything's going to be included in that. So it's a really nice grant that FEMA offers for fire departments to offset that compensation directly to the fire departments. Mm-hmm. And we have a real staffing need right now. With the COVID-19 quarantines, we found out that we are kind of understaffed, and also our part-time program. 10, 15 years ago, we had 20, 25 people that work part-time. Now we're down to people working right now around 3 to 4 people. So our part-time staff has gone way down because of the decline in the last 10 years. So, but mostly because of the COVID and people who are working other jobs drawing unemployment, and they can't work for the city anymore.
Do I hear a motion for resolution number 2021-03-08-08?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Cottle. Thank you, Commissioner Terry.
So does this allow, I have one more question. Does this
Yeah.
allow you to add 3 people, or does this cover salaries of 3 existing people?
This is going to help do the compensation for the adding three more staff
Adding
members.
people, okay.
Yeah, so you're adding 3, you're converting your part-time cost to fund this full-time program.
Right.
So then, as you grow over the next 3-4 years, you will have to ultimately fully fund the positions down the road. But it is needed positions, and what the goal is to maintain with absenteeism the minimum amount of people per truck, per shift, and in order to not have unnecessary overtime, and then also have to rely on part-time, which is less trained than full-time staff.
Yeah,
So it's really modernizing the fire department for the demands being placed on it. And then understanding too that we need to grow the department over time anyway. So this is a good way to start the initial expansion of the department, a few employees, without having to bear the cost with new allocation. You're just using your part-time allocation for the first 3 years. Yeah, 2 years.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
We have a motion and a second. Anything else? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 21 is resolution number 2021-03-08-09. This is the Public Education Grant Award. Continue, sir.
We did receive the Public Education Grant Award. That's $1,000 for smoke detectors for our community, which is fantastic. So we asked the commission to accept the grant for $1,000 for smoke detectors.
Do we hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion?
How does somebody get on that list? Is that also calling?
We're going to be putting it out on
beg or-
social media, and we'll also have, they can call 859-238-1211, the city fire station. We can sign them up for it.
What
I
was
don't know
that
if
number
we'll-
again?
859-238-1211. I'm getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, you are. Thank you.
But what we want also, is those people that have a need for one, smoke detectors save lives. We want to make sure that everybody in the city, if they could, or the county, has a working smoke detector in their home.
And some of those are for hearing impaired.
We have a few left of hearing impaired. These,
Okay.
I'm not sure how many we're going to be able to purchase with the $1,000. We're probably going to purchase more of the regular smoke alarms this go-around. But we will look into getting those. The hearing impaired smoke detectors are around $100 a piece, so it wouldn't go very far. We want to try to get, extension of our funds
Right.
and to meet as many people as possible. But there definitely is a need in our community. We still have 4 or 5 of those left.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 22 is resolution number 2021-03-08-10. This is a grant award for the thermal imaging camera.
Thank you. We asked the City Commission to approve the grant award for $3,200 for a thermal imaging camera from the Kentucky Fire Commission.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
sir. Thank you, sir. Discussion? What do you do with the old cameras?
We keep them.
Okay.
Yeah, we put them on different apparatus.
Got it. No other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item number 23, resolution number 2021-03-08-11, turnout gear grant award. Sir.
Well, we asked the commission to approve the grant award from the Kentucky Fire Commission for $10,000 for turnout gear, which this will allow us to purchase 3 turnout sets of turnout gear.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Terry, thank you. Discussion?
It's great to have all these grants
Yeah.
being awarded with no match. Man.
Yeah. Good work.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for always keeping your eyes open for money.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Have to give a lot of credit to my staff. They do a wonderful job for us, keeping us up to date. And the commission does a great job, and the city, everybody works together.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You have a good
Thank
night,
you.
sir.
We just get
I believe we have need for a second executive session.
We do, but prior to that, Mayor, under the legal section, I would ask that you consider approving the contract to sell for Jenny Rogers that was presented by the Danville Board of Education. That document is rather simple. After providing the legal description, simply restates the price and gives credit for the down payment already made that you approved by previous motion and acceptance. And it says that the closing shall occur on or before May 15th. And it says that any personal property left in the premises will be the city's with the exception of a security camera system that apparently that they do have intention of removing. Other than that, it's an as-is, and the city accepts it and will do its due diligence prior to the time of closing, but it's before you for signature, so it can be submitted to the Kentucky Department of Education for approval on their part.
Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Terry. Commissioner Cottle, any further discussion? Or any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Do we hear a motion that we move into executive session for personnel reasons?
I'll make a motion to go in executive session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 61.8101F.
We have a motion by Commissioner Holland. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Atkins. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. We are in executive session. Motion to move back into regular session.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Terry. Is there a second? Mr. Cottle, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We're in regular session. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. The city conducted a nationwide recruiting search for the position of Parks and Rec Director and received over 50 responses after what we would call a robust interview process, where the list was narrowed down to 10 applicants and then further refined to 6. After interviews, and we did conduct the final set of interviews with the county judge and the HR director and myself, staff recommends the hiring of Evan Teague to the Director of Parks and Recreation.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Terry. Is there a second? Thank you,
Oh.
Commissioner Holland.
Second?
I said second, but that's all right.
What's that?
You already
I said
seconded,
so.
didn't you? Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Hey, Cottle.
Not loud enough, Jim.
Cottle. It's Women's History Month. Let them have it.
We're in discussion if there is
Do
any.
whatever you want, Ashley.
Any discussion? Seeing none, chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Move
Is
we
there-
adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Have a good evening.